So I'm delighted today to have the opportunity to have a chat with Sam about team agreements and the relationship between team agreements and values in organisations. So hello, Sam, please introduce yourself.
Hi Helen, I'm Sam Jones and I work for the Stroke Association. The Stroke Association is a national charity who aim to make an impact, a beneficial impact on the lives of people affected by stroke. And my role is Associate Director for the North East and Yorkshire locality. So I kind of oversee all of our service delivery strands, our engagement with the NHS, campaigning and things for improvements to stroke care in the North East and Yorkshire area.
Thank you, Sam. And when and how did you become interested in team agreements?
Um, so Helen, I saw you at one of the Happy conferences that our colleague had invited me to come along to, and you were talking about various different ways about how we can empower teams and deliver real quality care to people. And one of the things you were talking about is team agreements. And it really kind of resonated with me because over the years in various different career paths that I've taken, you're part of a lot of different teams and you're kind of thrown together with different people who maybe have different values to you, different experiences, might see things differently to yourself. And you're just kind of expected to get on and do the job and work well together. And my experience really was that that wasn't the case. Sometimes, teams could be really effective and move forward, but other times there were things that were holding teams back. There could be some conflict or tension within the team. There could be an unawareness about how others are experiencing you, or a reluctance really to be honest with each other because you didn't want to offend people or you didn't know how people would experience you. So whilst the team I'm currently part of, I felt that we were working well as a team, it did really interest me about how we could maybe use it where teams perhaps are not working together in the most efficient way, or where there might be some improvements to be made.
Thank you. And I remember in one of our early conversations, you said you were a bit skeptical about whether they could be useful in your team because of the size and because of how well you know each other. So, how was your experience of team agreements? Did it make any difference? Was it worth doing, do you think?
Yeah, we were, well, we are a small team of three, and we've worked together for around about 5 or 6 years. So I felt that we knew each other really well. And we were the team that were kind of testing whether team agreements was something worth exploring further. And I did think, well, we don't really have any tension or conflict in our team, and we work really well together. So I'm not too sure how, team agreements would benefit us. But actually, it really did. It gave us an opportunity to explore what's worked well for us in the past and what sometimes has got in the way of us doing some really great work as a team, not just as our team, but in other teams that we've been part of. And it enabled us to build these agreements that we co-created together. It wasn't me as a leader enforcing something on the team. It was us saying, actually, if we work in this way, we'll be more efficient, our communication will improve, we'll know what to expect from each other, we'll be able to recognise when there's challenges and, call those out and have a conversation about how we can get past that. And it did actually start to shine in some of our meetings where we were able to hold each other to account from our agreements and say, actually, we agreed we'd do this, let's focus in on this. So whilst I was a little bit skeptical, because we were, I thought, a really efficient team who communicated well and worked well together, we have actually seen some real benefits.
That's brilliant to hear. And I know that one reason why people might be skeptical about team agreements is, well, isn't it just a piece of paper with a list of statements on it? How can that really make a difference? How can you keep it alive and keep it something that is living and growing? So what have you been learning about that, Sam?
I guess one of the things that I have been really grateful for actually is working with Michelle from Helen Sanderson Associates, really to help us kind of really dig into our team agreements. Because I guess sometimes you can be on a training course and I can be, my own worst enemy. I'm like, oh, this was fantastic, what great learning. And then I get back to my desk and it goes to the bottom of the pile and I never quite get to put everything into practice. Whereas with Michelle, because we owned them, because we'd created them together, we explored, okay, how are they going to be something that's living and breathing for us? And where are we going to store them so that we actually see them and they're there and they're not stored in some folder in the depths of the computer, never to be seen again? And we committed to kind of going back to them, reviewing them on a quarterly basis, or if somebody new joined the team. And we did have a new person join our team, so we did go back and review the team agreements and say, do these still stand for the new team? Yeah, we kind of just make sure that we go back to them. We have done team confirmation practices around them, so we'll pull out one of the agreements and score ourselves against that to say, how are we performing against this? Are we really living and breathing this within our team space? And then if we're not, if there's improvements to be made, we can have that discussion and go through the confirmation practices card to help us, put some actions into place to make sure that that is being lived by us in everything that we do.
One of the things that's exciting for me to hear about your work, and people may not have heard your other podcast about roles and confirmation practices, is that you're paying attention to, are you feeling confident in how you're delivering elements of your role? And are you doing the same in relation to team agreements? So for both your roles and how you work together as a team, you've got very specific statements and a clear understanding about what success looks like. And then you're saying, which one of these do I feel least strong in, least confident in, least sure that I'm delivering, and setting a task or a goal around that. Would you mind sharing, if you're comfortable doing so, Sam, because I didn't warn you about this, but what are you personally working on in relation to your team agreements at the moment?
Yeah, gosh, that's a really good question, Helen. And I guess one of the ones that sticks out for me is a team agreement that we have around being fully present with each other, and being honest when we're not able to do that. And I guess that relates to those times when, I don't know, maybe you've had a terrible morning at home and things are going on and things are playing on your mind and you're meeting as a team, you've got something that you're wanting to work on, and it's really important for moving forward to make a difference to people affected by stroke. And yeah, I guess in the past, before team agreements, I would have felt a bit kind of torn. I'd have been in a space where I was half in the meeting and half somewhere else, which wasn't fair on the team. It wasn't, something that I should be doing. Whereas now I can actually say that and say, this is going on. And it allows the team to say, what support do you need from us? Is there anything that we can do? And yeah, it creates that culture, that kind of space within the team that allows us to be really honest, and we have that safety now with each other, a really supportive environment, and it means that we do move forward as a team. But yeah, I have struggled with that sometimes because I kind of quite a private person, not always wanted to put what's going on with me and worry the team. But yeah, we've kind of committed to that as a team, so it's a really good one for me to be checking in around and making sure that I'm doing that. And we've added a check-in now to every meeting, so that's how we start each meeting, is just what's going on with you, how are you feeling, is there something getting in your way? So yeah, that's probably one that we're working on at the moment.
It's a brave thing for a leader to be able to ask for help, and I know many leaders believe that that isn't something that they should do, or it feels too vulnerable to ask for help from your colleagues. So it's wonderful to hear that actually having those agreements with your colleagues is making that feel a little less uncomfortable, a bit easier to do, although I understand that that's an area that you're working on. What would you say is the relationship between your team agreements and the culture and values of the organisation? Because I know that the Stroke Association is looking at a move to greater transparency, greater autonomy in teams. How do you see the relationship between the two?
Yeah, so I guess team agreements really does align with our values. So we have a few different values, and funnily enough, that team agreement I was just mentioning there, I think that really relates to our value of being human.
Hmm.
I think, in the past when I was perhaps new into, developing my work experience, I probably expected my leader, my manager to be a bit bionic. I expect them to carry everything. And we've really tried to shift away from that in our team. It is that we are human. We want to give our all. We want to believe in better, and we want to say it how it is, because if we do all of those things, we will achieve so much more for stroke survivors. So the team agreements is us kind of living those values, but they also allow us to express how we put our values into practice. So yeah, I see team agreements really crossing over with the new culture that we're wanting to achieve, and also the values that we want to live every day in making a difference to people affected by stroke.
Thank you. Can you explain a bit more about the process that you used to get there? Because I know Michelle came and joined you for a couple of meetings to get you started. But if somebody has no idea how you actually do this, how would you explain that to them? What did she do?
Yeah, so we sat down and kind of looked at our work timeline. So it was a snapshot of perhaps all of our working lives. Some of us went right back to our babysitting days, I think, as a teenager, and others maybe started a little bit further along the journey. But we looked at all of the different work experiences that we've had, and then started to explore those in terms of what really worked when you worked at that place or was in that role. What was it that was really, really great? And what didn't work when you were working as part of a team? What were the things that you found really challenging and maybe held you back as a team? So it was really interesting actually to go back, and I learned a lot about my other colleagues in doing that as well. But we also explored skills that we might have and interests, and if we were blue sky thinking, what would we be doing? But we then used those, what's working and what's not working about the previous history we've had, in terms of thinking, okay, where are the commonalities across what we're doing and what we're saying? So I think some of us said that if we felt heard and valued and trusted, that was really important to us. So that kind of weaved its way into that will feature in one of our agreements. We need to have that space where we feel heard and we feel trusted. And then there were other things about what didn't work, and again, seeing where we might have commonalities across us. So some of us said, where we felt like we were being really micromanaged, or somebody was peering down your neck all the time. That wasn't something we wanted to have. So that again is where some of the trust comes in. And one of our kind of team agreements was around trusting each other and acknowledging and seeing the value in the work that the three of us do differently. So it was a really, really good process, but it enabled us to, like I say, understand why these team agreements were important to us. Because if you don't have them and things don't work, then yeah, let's go back and learn from the past. So it was a really interesting experience.
And I think you also link them to Brené Brown's research on building trust in teams and psychological safety after that. So I'm excited really about the way that Michelle introduces this with people by starting with your personal experience. And as you say, what's worked and not worked for you in the past. But we also wonder whether that would work with every team. And you talked early on about some teams that may be in a more difficult place in their working relationships. And I know that sometimes Michelle uses, I think, their cards from Aaron Dignan about what are the tensions that the teams are experiencing. But your team was starting in a completely different space, weren't you?
Yeah. So Michelle did encourage us to kind of go to the Brené Brown work around, the Braving Trust, the Braving definitions,
Mm.
and to say, do our team agreements seem to align with some of the things in there around, having boundaries in place and, having that clarity around what's okay and what isn't, and generosity in terms of, extending the most generous interpretation to intention. So we have that in there in terms of, we'll do the right thing, not the easiest thing, and we'll also kind of not judge each other, be able to ask what we need and things like that. So it was really interesting to see actually our bare bones that were our team agreements initially. Had we a lot of the boxes of the Brave in definitions, and I think we had, but
Hmm.
it allowed us just to dive into them a little bit more and clarify what we meant by them and why these were important. So yeah, it was great to join those things up.
I think one of the things that we're learning is starting team agreements with team members' individual experiences and then putting those together into the first draft team agreements. And then, as you've just described, looking at the research around psychological safety and building trust and seeing if there's anything you want to add. But now also looking at the values of an organization and is there anything that needed to be added or could be added to truly live the values of the organization. So could you say a bit more about the culture that you're seeking to create, the other initiatives that you're doing in the Stroke Association to build this culture and where you think team agreements could fit?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think culture is probably something that we're always going to have to work on, Helen.
Mm,
If I'm going to be completely honest, and I think we need to really live our values on a daily basis and really start being a little bit more open. And I'm speaking, purely from my perspective
mm,
here, um, to gaining some feedback and understanding how we might be experienced by others. And I guess that's where I see the importance of team agreements in developing our culture, because um, for us as a team agreements has been wonderful in reaping some benefits. For an established team, one that works together quite a lot. But there are times when you're put into other teams to work on a project, or there's a piece of work that you want to get across the line. And I guess historically, I've been a little bit, I work in health and social care. I always have done, and I guess I see myself as, what do I want to be seen as, if anything? And I guess that's being kind and caring of others. And that's why I'm perhaps working in the charity that I do work for. But that has meant that I've been held back a little bit in the past. I've not quite been as honest about what I've needed, or I've tiptoed around people. I've not maybe wanted to step on the toes. And that's a really challenging thing to do, isn't it? Because you're not going to
mm.
get the best work out of anybody if you've got people who can't be honest and can't work together. So it's made me more open to having conversations with teams that I'm maybe temporarily part of to do a piece of work and just say, how can we work really well together? What's important to us in this space? And, so can we set out a few little not ground rules, but those kind of agreements to make sure that we know that our intentions are good. If we're saying something, we're not setting out to offend somebody, but we're all wanting to achieve the same thing, and let's have a conversation about how we get there. And I guess that's important to our culture, because we want to get the most out of everybody. We want to have the trust that people are there to do a really good job. We want to give them the boundaries and the tools that they need to do that well, and make really empowered decisions in the best interest of those people that we're here to work with. So yeah, it's really exciting actually for me how we could maybe use team agreements a little bit more to develop the culture that we want to do moving forwards.
Thank you. That so reminds me of one of my favourite quotes from Brené Brown about clear is kind. And if you can start off in project groups or project meetings or in new teams with complete clarity about what you can expect from each other and to co-create that rather than it just being given by a more senior person, I could see how that could really make a difference. And before we finish, Sam, could you give us some examples from your actual list? How many have you got? And could you share 2 or 3 of them with us?
Yeah, so we have 8 team agreements. And like I say, we do review them. So we have tweaked them slightly. We look at them every quarter. And like I say, when we had a new member, we did tweak them. So one of them, which again relates to our values really well, is that we are aware that we're all human and we'll make mistakes, but we create that environment where mistakes are learning opportunities and we support each other to reflect in a safe space. And another is around being honest about what we need from each other. So it goes back to that again, not beating around the bush. I'm not thinking, oh, this person's probably got a lot on the plate, so I don't ask them to do something or offer their support. We're honest about what we need, and then we're also honest the other way. If we can't support, you know, we don't have capacity, we'll discuss and look at how we can maybe troubleshoot and overcome some of those things. So those are two that I really, really do like.
Thank you. And for anybody who's listening to this and is curious about getting started, I know there's one theory that, you know, it's better to be already a high functioning team where there's good psychological safety before you do something like this. But what's your view?
Yeah, I guess I've really had my eyes open, Helen, because I think that first time when I heard you at the Happy Conference, I thought, yeah, this could help where there's perhaps some challenges within teams that need to be overcome. But I can see now that actually there's so many benefits from team agreements for anybody who might have to work with somebody else. And I think yeah, don't be naive like me. Don't think that you've got it all boxed off. I think once you sit down and have chance to reflect and start those conversations, you'll be shocked at what comes out. And there are only benefits to be achieved from doing that because, you know, we've realised our communication is so much better. We're more confident as a team. We're more confident in making decisions in isolation because we know, you know, within that team space, we've already had these really good conversations to help us make these decisions. So there are so many benefits that cut across so many different areas of work.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for sharing what you've been doing, learning and trying about team agreements. It's really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.